Okay, take two. Um, I was going to make somewhat of an effort to talk to you about my recent reads because I do care, but then whenever I start talking, I just ramble on and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not concise information that anyone has any use for that at all. But I'm gonna give it another try. So I read books recently. Some of them really awful and some of them exceptionally good. First of all, I read Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. I read that on ebook. 5 out of 5, amazing perfection, funny, relatable. I cried on public transport, which I mean, TBH, I've been doing that more and more lately because I've stopped giving fucks. Like I used to think that if I started crying in public, someone would come at me like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" Like actually, people don't care. Like I had a seizure the other day. I was like falling on the fucking ground. I was like crying and like spasming on the ground. It took like a full 10 minutes before anyone like stopped and asked if I was okay. All of the other people were just like, "Yeah, that's weird," but they just kept going. Like people don't care about what you do in public. So I've been just letting my emotions out, whether that's good or bad. Anyway, that totally insane story aside, books. So yes, if you have like anxiety or like panic attacks or some form of dissociation, you're going to find Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead so relatable, but also very like oomph. It was like triggering sometimes because it gets really graphic with like the intrusive thoughts and like yeah, anyway, it's like it's fucking perfect. It's a 10 out of 10. I can't recommend it enough. Then I also read not in one an order because my brain does not remember even like what happened 5 seconds ago, let alone in what order I read the books that I've read ever. um I read Autobiography of Red by Anne Carson, which has been on my TBR for ages, but for some reason I was like, I don't know, I was like thinking it would be inaccessible to me because I'm not like a Greek myth guy like some of y'all. Like I'm not a Greek myth person at all, but it's super accessible because of it's got an introduction and everything. Anyways, read it. It's 5 out of 5. It's poetry, but like prose poetry, and like I've never read anything like it. And the way that she does descriptions, it's just like I want to eat it, and I never wanted this to stop. I've got this thing with books when I'm reading them. Like even if I'm enjoying them so much, I can't wait for it to be over because it's an accomplishment when you finish a book, and I feel just like that dopamine, like that slight dopamine hit. Like I did something, I finished an entire book. That's a accomplishment in and of itself. So that's I love that feeling. So even if I love the book, I can't wait for to finish it and to be able to say like I finished another book. But with this one, this is the exception to the rule because I genuinely was near the end and I was like, I don't actually want this to end. I want this to go on forever and ever, and I want to read every single word that this author has ever produced because it isn't fucking scrumptious. Like I want to feel it. I want it to seep into my soul, basically. I mean, there were some things within the plot, like towards the end, where I was like, do I care for that? Like, is that really where we want to go with this? But then I don't care because it's really just the poetic writing style and this amazing character study that she does. That's just like, I don't even care what it's about. Like, and the main character in this book is really into photography. Like, the way he does his autobiography is mainly through photographs. And it just gave me so much, um, passion again for and inspiration again for taking more pictures, and I've just been so inspired and it's just amazing. And then I also read Ali Smith's companion piece to the Seasonal Quartet. I fucking love Ellie Smith. I mean, there's some of her work that's been a misser and been a bit I mean, The Accidental, I think that's one of her first books. It's not no, it's a no. It's a big ass no for me. But like I've given some of her other works like 5 stars and I love it so much, especially the Seasonal Quartet. It's amazing. You should read it. It's really good. But this is just like a little bit weird to me because it gave like the author was trying a little too much not to take accountability for certain things, but then she's being so insidious about it. Like, I can't really express that. I've tried in my review, so if you give a shit about this author at all, or about me, or what I think about anything at all, if you're just bored, you can read that on the Storygraph. But yeah, this, I mean, it's funny because like I was like, what should I read? And I read the first page, and it's fucking funny. Like, it's witty. She does things that you're not expecting, with like that sharpness of the humor that's also like really dark and really serious at the same time. And she's really exceptionally good at her craft, and it's genius and it's great, and she's so well with words. And then I'm like, but why still bigotry? Why still slight bigotry? I don't know why. That doesn't have to happen, but then it does, and I'm just like disappointed about that. Then I also attempted to read Funny Weather by Olivia Ling. Anyways, I attempted to read this. I DNF'd this like officially last night. I mean, I've picked this up ages ago. I mean, ages months ago or something, and I started to read some of it, and I flipped through it, and I couldn't actually keep reading, and I kept putting it aside and then trying again, and then reading a few pages and then putting it aside again. The thing is that this shit is so fucking boring. I do not care. Okay, because from like the title and from the back and her introduction thingy, you would expect like an actual exploration of like what art can mean in times of emergency, and like especially in terms of the climate crisis that we're living through right now, and like where we're all like, oh my god, the world's gonna end. Like, does art have a role at all in this sort of culture right now? Is that something that we can use, or is that some sort of indulgence? Like, this is just questions that is so now, like they are so important right now. But actually what this is not that at all. She talks about a bunch of old white dudes, artists that have long since passed, and I'm like, sure. And also, this is just a collection of essays that she just already published in columns and stuff, and then she just went like, oh no, oh, you know what, I have enough to fill a book, so let me just fill a book. And then she put them all together, and they're not really actually that interconnected with each other at all. And they're just really just she just goes, yeah, you know what, I like this artist actually, and also this one, and also this one. And it's just like, it could be just an Instagram post where she's like, I like all of these white male artists, by the way. Like, it's barely like there's a few women. She's like got an entire section where she's like, females, by the way, I am feminist. And I'm like, sure, it's like pretty queer. Like, there's a lot of queer and like about AIDS and stuff. But it's just really disappointing because she just gives information about artists where I'm like, okay, Wikipedia could have done this for me. Like, you're not giving your stance, you're not giving any sort of philosophical exploration that I was looking for. Anyways, it's really disappointing, and I'm gonna stop talking about it. Then I read Sterling Current Gold by Isabel Wadner. I picked this up. I'd never heard about this before. I just saw the really wild cover, and I was like, that looks cool. I had zero expectations, so that might have helped in like this, how surprisingly good this was to me. But this blew my mind. This blew me away. Fucking 10 out of 10. I cannot recommend this enough. So this is about like the best thing about this. I mean, everything about this is amazing, but the main character is non-binary and use they them, but also all of their friends also use they them. So all of the main characters use they them pronouns, and they're all trans and gender non-conforming, which is amazing. And then it's take a breath. It's basically a retelling of a modern day retelling of The Trial by Franz Kafka. This really absurdist style, stream of consciousness style. It's fucking hilarious. It's fucking confusing. I did not know what was happening at all, and it's so weird that I read a lot of the words completely wrong, because you're not expecting that word to be there. Your mind's already projected a word that it's expecting, and it's never what it's expecting, and it's just one of those books where it's just like an entire ride, like a movie that happens as you read, and just let it happen to you. And basically, this is an exploration of like the absurdity and the unfairness of the justice system, and like the violence and police brutality, and the violence that's integrated within the system against specifically trans people and gender conforming people, but also all of the minorities. And then it's arts there. They're the main character and their friends are performance artists who do performance pieces with like costumes, elaborate costumes. It's really fucking like the bad guy is a big ass frog, and there's time travel. It's fucking great. You need to read it and just like let that happen to you and experience that, because it's unlike anything else I've ever read, and I'm fucking here for it. I've discovered a genre that I'm into now, and then I'm gonna read everything else by this author. It's great. Okay, then last book I'm gonna talk about very briefly is The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson. Now I liked Bluets by Maggie Nelson so much. I gave that 5 out of 5. I bought the book and reread it like twice within a few months. I love it. I think it's very funny. I think it's very honest. I think it's very generous. Um it's very itself. It's like, this is what I am, and I love that. And it's very profound, very poetic. But then there's this, which is shit. And I also read The Art of Cruelty by Megan Nelson, actually, which is somewhere. I'm not finding it right now because my room is actually a mess. Um, I also read that one, which is in and of itself, like, the subject is interesting because violence in art, and like art and violence. Yes, I want to know. Um, like, I want to know so much about art because yeah, it's just something that right now for me is relevant in my own work process. So it was interesting, the content of the book, but then it's also very annoying because Maggie Nelson just sometimes inaccurately uses words that she just doesn't know what they mean, and she just uses them like, and it's very problematic because she just uses like 3 or 4 times throughout The Art of Cruelty. She uses the slur, the R slur, um, which we all know that's a slur. Like, we all know that's a slur, and she's an academic, so she definitely knows that's a slur. But she just, it's like fully there. It's like not in the context where she knows that it's bad. No, she's just using it as a descriptor, which I think is fucking disgusting. And then she does something similar in this book, where she just like describes someone saying something that she doesn't like as a Tourettic tic, or like a Tourettic compulsion or something weird like that. I'm like, bro, you don't know what these words mean. You are being ableist right now. And then she also says some like insidious transphobic stuff where she just like implies that women, cis female women that get pregnant because their bodies undergo transformation, that's the same as being transgender. And I'm like, girl, no, it's not. Girl, there might be similarities, and that's interesting enough, but get to you don't get to. It's wild to me. And she also does, she just talks about like white feminism so much, and then there's one small section where she mentioned something about race, which was so wild to me because it was the weirdest take I'd ever read. I can't really reproduce it right now because my mind's trying to delete it as soon as I read it, but she's basically just like, don't see race, don't see color. I don't know. She's so... Anyways, this book really frustrated me. It made me really angry to read all of these 4 and 5 star reviews where like, yeah, if you care about like reading about gender and all that, No, don't read this. Read by trans authors, please. This is a woman, cis female woman that wrote this. And also she really culturally appropriates Native American cultures. Really weirdly. It's just a whole mess. It's really shit. 1 star. I hated that and her takes so much. And please don't read this or praise this again ever, please. I hate to end this on such a bad note. So takeaway for this is like read these books. Read Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. Don't read any of the other shit I talked about. Those were terrible. Yeah, this was probably really, really boring. Slay.